All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome to another GratiTuesday stream. It's not Mindful Monday anymore. Let's change that. It's GratiTuesday. I hope everybody's doing well. It is 11:03 a.m. here. That was bitchin'. Oh, you mean the intro? You like the intro? Yeah, you've seen the intro. It's cool, right? I like it. I like my intro. I'm happy we got it made. But yeah, we're back. It's Tuesday. It is GratiTuesday, so it's a day to be grateful for. And I'm excited today, guys, not just because we have another episode of Ask a Neuroscientist coming up in an hour. Well, I'm glad you like it, Cricket. I'm glad you like it. Not just for that, but because we have you guys are going to enjoy the gaming part of today's stream. I can't show it on this part of the stream because they're not set up to be in action on this particular part of the stream. But when we get to the gaming part of the stream, we've got a lot of like memes and gifs and stuff that I've added to Streamlabs that I'm excited to use because they're going to be really funny. They're really awesome. I'm excited about this. Hey Kath, welcome. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I had a weird night. I got to sleep at a pretty good time, about 11 o'clock, but I woke up at like 4:45. Couldn't get back to sleep, so I just got up, and I was planning to do something productive with my time after I got up, but I ended up just uploading memes for the stream. So I spent 2.5 hours this morning just searching for memes and adding them to stream for later on. And I think today, for the gaming stream, starting at 3 o'clock Pacific, we're going to play some Mario Kart. So I'm excited for some Mario Kart. It's going to be fun. Squidly, hey, welcome back. Haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're doing well. Good to have you with us. Let me make sure the volume. Is the music volume a little bit loud? Yeah, music volume's a little bit loud. There we go. Let's bump that down a little bit. Bump it down a little bit in my headphones. That's kind of good. That's better, right? So yeah, how's everybody doing, guys? This check-in portion of the stream is always a good opportunity for us to see how everybody's doing. Yeah, you've been all over the place recently. You mean you've been hopping to different streams or something else? Good day, Kat. Welcome. You are going to enjoy, I'm pretty confident you're going to enjoy the gaming part of the stream later on, because we're playing Mario Kart, which is like, I don't know if that's your type of game or not, but I have a feeling that the memes that I've added to Streamlabs, you're gonna enjoy some of those memes, I think. I don't know why I get the feeling that you particularly are going to enjoy them. I just kind of feel like it's going to be funny. Kath says, I'm meh. I just feel like everything's too much and feel really overwhelmed. Oh, don't worry about it. You're not a drag. You're definitely not a drag. I think part of it is like everybody else is not necessarily managing. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like a lot of people are not doing as well as they seem like they are. You know, they're probably sort of covering up a lot of what they're going through and covering up maybe a lot of anxiety and stress and things like that. I don't think there's a lot of people out there who just have this sort of serene lifestyle where there's no stress and there's no struggles and things like that. But people don't share it. You know, people don't like sharing it. It's hard to share. Pony, hello, welcome. Hope you're doing well. I remember you weren't doing too great the other day when we were talking, so hope you're doing well. I've mentally been everywhere, and I'm looking for a therapist because I've gotten to a point where I can't handle it alone anymore. Well, that's a good decision. I applaud you, and let's give a round of applause to Squidly for seeking out therapy. I think that's a great decision. I think you're gonna benefit from that a lot. As long as you end up having a therapist that's a good fit for you. Oh, cat alert? Really? Was there a cat alert? I didn't see it. I didn't even see it. I was like looking somewhere else. Okay, well, Silver Fox Talks. Welcome back, Silver Fox. We've got a cat running around. They'll be back. I'm sure they'll be back. You guys saw them the other day, like zooming back and forward. That was yesterday, I think. I got to get a clip of it. I'm not sure if I clipped it yesterday, but we got to get some clips of cat zooms. But yeah, Squidly, I think you'll benefit a lot from working with a therapist that is right for you, and I'm glad to hear that you have sought out some help, because everyone needs help at times. So that's good. And Lady Ponytail also found a new therapist who isn't a new therapist, but rather an old therapist who is now at a different practice. Well, that could be just as excuse me, that could be just as good as a new therapist, right? So that's great. I am glad that you're getting access to what you might need, the help that you might need. So that's great to hear. That is something to be grateful for. To pivot to the theme of today, GratiTuesday. You guys can see it. Where is it? Right there. GratiTuesday. I personally am grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful that I get to do this. I am grateful that I get to stream for you guys. I'm grateful that you guys have shown up. I'm really appreciative of everybody being here. Grateful that the weather is pretty good here in Vegas. I'm looking out of my window, seeing that it's sunny. That's nice. I'm grateful for, as always, my wife, Cricket, my cats, my health, all those things. Lots of good stuff. I haven't been to therapy since high school, and I'm different now than I was before, so Squidly. Yeah, that we all evolve, you know, and high school us versus adult us is it's a very different equation a lot of the time. For me, like, I look at my own high school self and I'm like, wow, that's just not, it's not even a person. Not even that's like a baby. I was just a baby for most of high school. Pony says, I loved her and cried when she left. I'm super happy. Cool. Well, I'm grateful that you have had that opportunity to reconnect with a therapist that you really like. That's awesome. Kat says, I'm grateful for my diagnosis and knowing what's going on with me. That's good. That's great. That's really good. And your job, your friends, and your boyfriend. Awesome. Yeah. I've heard you talk a few times about your job. It sounds like you have a job that you enjoy. So that's great. You know, the book that we've been reading, Lost Connections, I tend to hold it up every time I talk about it. I don't know why, but it's just because it's here. Talks a lot about how a lot of people don't like their job, and I'm glad that you have the opportunity to do a job that it seems like, at least, you find to be fulfilling and things like that. I'm grateful. Wait, sorry, I've already read that. I really enjoy my job, and coworkers are the best people in the world. That's awesome. That is really, really good to hear. And yeah, as Silver Fox says, a happy job, or a job that you enjoy, a job that is fulfilling and is meaningful for you. It's a fantastic starting point. Absolutely. I'm grateful for Fidget, says Pony. Is that your cat? Ah, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say Fidget must be your cat. That's a good name for a cat. That's definitely a good cat name. I think you chose well. I assume that it's a pretty active, energetic kind of cat. Although it'd be kind of fun to have like an ironically named cat who's just really fat and lazy, and you call it Fidget. But maybe that's not. I don't know. Maybe it's not that funny. I don't know. She stole my fidget spinner the day we met. Ah, okay, that makes more sense. I thought it was just like a very sort of active cat. Is that a wow? The cat with shades. Cat with shades emote is good. That's a lot of emotes. We've got plenty of good emotes. Get ready on the by the way, get ready on the good question emote for when Ask a Neuroscientist starts, because we got that one now, and that allows us to recognize when somebody is asking a good question, and just to kind of validate the question asking, to get the questions out there for Dr. Rob. Grateful for pets and healing animals. Yeah, animals are great. I don't think I really understood the value of pets until later on. Oh, cat alert. There's Gargoyle. She's on patrol. Not really on patrol. She's just probably looking for food. Or looking for a place to sit up high so she can look down on somebody. There we go. Got the cat alert. I'm. It's funny. Croquette and I were just talking yesterday about how funny it is that the cat alert emote seems to be like the most used one so far. And I guess it's just because they happen to be walking past a lot. But I'm gonna have to, when we move at the end of the month, I'm gonna have to come up with a what do you call it? A streaming setup that is somewhat akin to this one, in the sense that it allows for cat alerts when cat arrives in the room or walks past the door or whatever. Thank you for the bits, Silver Fox. I appreciate it. Always appreciate the bits. I have a question, but I'm not sure how to phrase it. So how do I do self-care when I'm not at home without my self-care stuff? Interesting. Yeah, I would say that it's less about the stuff and more about what the stuff does for you, right? So, for example, if there is a particular item that you don't have access to that gives you the ability to, I don't know, do something that is relaxing, let's say, then you might want to think about other ways to get the same impact from maybe even a completely different activity, because it's really about the impact, and it's about the emotional experience, and we can get attached to a certain thing, a certain item, and say, oh well, I can't do this because I don't have this. But in a lot of cases, the reason why we want to do this in the first place is because we want to generate a certain feeling or a certain emotional state. So for example, like for me, well, one second. I hope I successfully muted myself there. I don't know if I said that twice. I don't know if the mute worked, but I pressed the button. I didn't get to see if it actually worked. Well, thank you. I did mute myself. Yes, good. All right, that's successful. Good. Yeah. So for me, it might be exercise. Let's say, right? So, oh, cat alert again. There we go. For me, it might be exercise, and it might be. She might, yeah. I think she seems like she's looking for something. Cricket, maybe you can see what she's up to. Oh, he moved on. She moved on. Yeah, she moved on. She doesn't come in here really while I'm streaming. I don't think either of them really come in here. But yeah, so what was I saying? So for me, it's exercise, right? So like, I might be somewhere else, and I might not have like my yoga mat, or I don't know, access to like weights or something, you know, or you know, whatever equipment I might use to exercise. And I could say like, oh well, I can't work out because I don't have this. But if I were to think about it, then there's things that I can do that would engineer the same result to some degree, that would maybe not necessarily be the exact same thing that I would do if I did have access to the physical items that I needed, but it would pretty much accomplish the same thing. And that's a pretty good option, I think. So having actions when you're out that keep you feeling safe and like you're caring for yourself. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Like usually when I'm anxious, I play with my fidget cube to give myself the tactile input, which is calming. Okay, so in this case, I think it's about finding something else to give you the tactile input, right? So whatever you might be able to find in your environment that can allow you to have some kind of tactile input, that might help. And it might not help in the same way that the fidget cube does. You know, it might not give you the same sense of stimulation that the tactile input of the fidget cube might, but it could give you enough that it just sort of eases it temporarily, or allows it to sort of subside to some degree. My anxiety thing that I do is like spinning my ring on my finger. Like I do this a lot. I have like a bunch of just spinning my ring on my finger. That's just my thing that I'm constantly doing a lot of the time. And it used to be I would spin my phone. It used to be that I would spin my phone on my hand. Like I would go like this, spinning my phone on my hand, and I would drop my phone a lot. That was bad. So now I do it with my ring, and I do this as well. I move my ring between fingers. Like I do this, like that. You see that? And then I drop my ring all the time. So I do way too much with just anything that's on my hands. I have a stress ball somewhere. Maybe I should get that. I have a yellow stress ball with a smiley face on it. Like the smiley face from Watchmen. If you guys have seen Watchmen or read Watchmen. Cardiac coherence is my new calming tool, and it works wonders, especially if you do it more than once a day. Interesting. Let's check out this YouTube video. Cardiac coherence. I don't know why I've never heard of cardiac coherence before. The description says, coherence is the term used by scientists to describe a state of high psychological efficiency in which the nervous, cardiovascular, endocrine, and immune systems are working efficiently and in harmony. Coherence is the basis of optimum performance and health in the human being. Greater coherence equals less stress. Stress stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, and relaxation or stress stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, and relaxation or positive emotions involve the parasympathetic nervous system. Much research has shown a direct connection between sympathetic versus parasympathetic tone and physical and mental health problems such as heart disease, hypertension, depression, and anxiety. Additionally, there appears to be a two-way communication system between the brain and the nerves surrounding the heart. This system affects the body's stress hormones and immune system. When you practice this exercise, there is an increase in DHEA, the hormone of youth, and a decrease in cortisol that becomes a neuro and cytotoxic when too much is generated. Your body achieves up to 5 hours of positive health results after only 5 minutes of cardiac coherence. Interesting. Wow. That kind of feels like one of those things where it's like we don't fully know the 100% of the science about it. You know, it feels like one of those things where we don't have pure clarity over the precise nature of how to snap our fingers and feel better, but we have a lot of these things that are sort of becoming more known, I suppose, in the form of exercises like this, practices. Something that my friend Jason Su, who's a presence coach, taught me is this exercise. I don't know if this is actually similar to cardiac coherence. It may be. I'm just going to open the window up, the video up, so I can actually see like if there's any physical component to it. Check it out. Yeah, I don't know, but I can't quite tell from the video. But Jason Su taught me this thing where it's like you breathe in and you sort of bend you slightly arch your back slightly a little bit, and then as you breathe out, you rock forward a little bit, and then you breathe in and rock backwards a little bit, and then rock forwards a little bit. And apparently that sort of motion, that gradual breathing in and arching your back, breathing out and sort of leaning slightly forward, apparently that is supposed to be really calming as well, because that's the motion that happens to a baby when it's in the womb or something like that. That's what he said, I think, but that might have a relationship with cardiac coherence in some way there. But yeah, it sounds really useful. Grounding, sitting with nature on the ground. I love that, sitting outside. Yeah, sitting outside is very underrated. Very useful thing, I think, just being outside. I haven't mentioned it, but I've been going through online group therapy the last 6 weeks. Okay, wow. I am glad to hear that you've got some great tools from it. I've done group therapy. I have not done online group therapy. Oh, cat alert! There she is again. I've not done online group therapy. I suppose in a weird way, like this is a sort of form of online group therapy in itself, I suppose. You know, at least for me, it's like I come out here and I talk to a group of people and I just like tell everybody what's going on in my life. You know, that's a form of therapy, I guess. Supposed to be in person, but COVID. Yeah, I see. Heard of tapping on your temples? Yeah, I've heard of tapping being a thing. Like I've heard of something like that, but it seems very like pseudoscience-y. Like I don't think I've heard I don't know what the science is behind the tapping idea, right? Like if someone could tell me tapping does this and this and this to your brain, that would be helpful, you know, then I might be able to look at that and be like, oh, okay, this is a proven methodology. But it feels like it might be one of those things where it sort of kind of feels like it helps, but then part of it is like a placebo, because if someone tells you it helps and then you do it, if you believe it's gonna help, then it's gonna help. But yeah, it's funny. It sort of taps into what the book was partially saying at one point earlier on about how a decent part of the effect of mental health tools, or a decent part of the effect of psychiatric drugs in many cases in the past has been proven to be basically oh, cat alert, that's Beef this time. Okay, the other cat. They're both out here. They're both just like wandering around. They're very active now. I don't know why they weren't like this before. It's weird. They weren't walking around so much before at this time of day. Normally they're just asleep at this time of day, but they're out here. What I want is in the new place, I want to get a stream set up where I can have like a tower in the background where they can come and sit, and maybe they'll come like get food or something in my office while I'm streaming, so that you guys can see them chowing down and things like that. I mean, tactile input is good for you as a distraction tool. Back to pop socket popping. Yeah, I mean, anything like a pop socket on your phone. Cat tree, yeah. We've got like 4 cat trees in this house. We've got a lot of cat trees. We've got probably too many cat trees, but you know, I suppose you can never really have too many cat trees, can you? Oh, Pony forgot the push-ups. You know what? You redeemed a meditate for 5 minutes like last week sometime or before, and I never did it. So let's do it. Let's actually meditate. I'm gonna do the push-ups first, and then we're gonna meditate. I'm assuming you're gonna do 5 of the push-ups, because you normally do 5. And I only see 3 so far. You can't get it to go. Okay, well I'll do 5. I'll just assume you redeemed 5, because you always redeem 5. So let's do the 5 push-ups. Let's move this out of the way. All right. Beef showed up and wondered why the hell I was doing push-ups in my office. Hey, buddy. Come in here. Come here. Oh, okay. Rejected. He rejected me. Well, we did the push-ups. I'm gonna drink some water now. Yeah, he was definitely confused there. He was like, what the hell are you doing? All right, let's find a meditation to do, guys. We're gonna meditate. I'm always a bit weird doing this on stream because like, and I think it was a 5-minute meditation that you redeemed, right? So I'm always a bit weird doing this on stream because people come in and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" Okay, 5-minute calming meditation with guiding voice. All right, there we go. So I'm going to briefly add a source to my, where are we? We want window capture, and we want meditation. That's why you have mods. Yes, true. That is why I have mods. Okay, so that's YouTube. Let's make that smaller. Let's just put it like here or something for the time being. Yeah, okay, so we're going to shut off the music and we're going to meditate. Oh, we're going to meditate, and then the cats are going to chase each other back and forth in the background. I need mods for the cats. I need mods to get the cats to slow down. Anyway, time to meditate, guys. All right, let's try this. Okay, so this is a disclaimer, but I'm just gonna be quiet, and mods, you're here, so you take care of anything. I tell you what, maybe I should quiet the alert box just in case. We're gonna get, yeah. Okay, so we're going to, yeah, we're gonna make the alert box quiet again. Okay, so we shouldn't get any alerts during this. We shouldn't get any alerts interrupting us. All right, let's do this. I can hear cricket outside my stream room.
This 5-minute meditation can reduce nervousness before events, such as interviews, beginning a new job or school, or dealing with everyday stressful situations, or just whenever
Tell you what,
want to
I want to check the
calm.
volume 1 second.
To begin, sit on a chair with your feet on the floor.
Okay.
Inhale through your nose to the count of 4, then exhale through your mouth to the count of 2. Do this several times. Imagine that rising from the core of the earth up to your feet comes a sphere of white light. Concentrate on it. Draw it through the soles of your feet. Feel its warmth as it enters your body. Feel it sink into each muscle, into every fibre. Continue to draw it upward through your calves, knees, thighs. Feel it dissolve stress and tension as if you were sitting in a warm bath. Let it flow on upward to your solar plexus and disperse tightness. Feel it bathe your upper back, your throat. It illuminates your face like sunlight, ridding you of any tension in your head. The warmth infuses you with calm and with confidence. Say to yourself, I am calm. I am centered. I am at peace. Now imagine the light returning to the area of your solar plexus, the seat of your emotions. From there, it radiates out through your skin, flowing down from your head to your heels and surrounding you with a protective aura. When you have done this, relax and stretch. Take a deep breath. Feel the warmth and the peace of the light resting in you. And remember that it is always there for you to call upon whenever you need to feel calm.
Oh, there we go. That was it. I wasn't sure I'd correctly judge when it was actually done, but there we go. That's our meditation, guys. So we meditated for 5 minutes. Full 5 minutes on stream. I'm surprised there's still people here, honestly. Like, I just sat here for 5 minutes. Oh, wait. Is it still playing something? Yeah, okay, that's playing something, some other music. All right, let's put the music back on. There we go. I'm surprised you guys are still here. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to sit and watch somebody else meditate for 5 minutes. I guess hopefully you guys are meditating with me, right? But like, I appreciate you guys still being here, honestly. I actually really needed that right now. Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad. Dealing with a lot right now. Okay, well, I am glad that it was helpful for you. I modded the cats. I coaxed them down the hall and gave them treats and petted them. That's great. You're my cat mod. That's what you are. You're also the you're also an actual mod. So who's here that should be a mod that isn't? Kath, do you want to be a mod? I feel like you've been here most of the streams recently. You should be a mod. I've been modding more people lately just so that we're not putting a lot of pressure on specific people to do the modding, you know. Hello, Smithy. Welcome, welcome. You just missed a 5-minute meditation, so you arrived at the right time. Well, maybe or the wrong time, depending on how you're feeling, I guess. If you're feeling like crap, you know, maybe the meditation would have helped. That's some pro modding. Yeah, that is good cat modding. Outstanding cat modding. And yeah, I feel you guys. Hugs going out to all of you. We got people going through a little bit of a rough period, rough patch. It's the holidays, and the holidays can be rough. The holidays can be a challenge, and I sympathize with anybody who is in that position. I had a debate recently when I was doing poker commentary about the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? And I was very confident in the definitions of those two things. I was very confident that empathy is when you can imagine what it feels like for somebody else. And sympathy is when you know what it feels like because you've experienced it. But there were people who seemed to disagree with that. And the definitions I found were not actually super clear. So I'm wondering if I got the definition of those two things wrong. Or like if I got them mixed up and mixed around. Like, how do you guys define empathy versus sympathy? Because to me, sympathy is like, I know how you feel. Empathy is, I don't know how you feel, but I understand that you're going through something. Right. Nope, flip that. You mean flip the definitions? Because this might honestly be an American thing, because Kath is saying empathy means you can put yourself in someone else's shoes without considering your own feelings and thoughts. That's because that's what I thought it means, right? And we're Europeans. But a lot of Americans that I'm talking to are saying the opposite. They're saying sympathy and like they're saying empathy is when you can no wrong chat. Oh, what? You mean you typed in the wrong chat or what? Sorry, that was supposed to be in Discord. Oh, no worries. But yeah, this might be a European versus American thing. Smithy, what's your take? Which one between empathy and sympathy, which one means you actually know what it is they're feeling because you've been through it, or you're feeling the same thing? To me, sympathy is understanding someone else's pain but keeping a sane distance. Empathy is feeling their pain. Okay, so that's the inverse, right? Okay, so we've got the Canadian and the American agreeing on the inverse. This is really interesting for me. Cricket, tell me what your thoughts are on the definition of sympathy versus empathy, because I'm gonna actually look it up. Empathy versus sympathy. Okay. Let's see if we can find a definition. Okay. So, empathy versus sympathy, what's the difference? This is from a place called 6 Seconds, the Emotional Intelligence Network. It says, what's the difference between empathy and sympathy? Basically, emotion. Empathy means experiencing someone else's feelings. It comes from the German Einfühlung, or feeling into. It requires an emotional component of really feeling what the other person is feeling. Sympathy, on the other hand, means understanding someone else's suffering. It's more cognitive in nature and keeps a certain distance. I see. So that kind of is more in line with the inverse of how I was framing those words. Except it's a slightly different framing, because it's less about... It's more about what you're actually experiencing versus how you're thinking about it. So this kind of does seem that the European definition, or to empathy is feeling the other person's pain. Okay. Well, where are we here? I suffer from too much empathy. Yeah, I get it. I get it. From what I've read, sociopaths and psychopaths lack empathy. Sympathy is understanding another's feelings. Yeah. Empathy is feeling the other person's pain. Yeah, that's... I guess for me, it's like... the misunderstanding I think I had was it was about... My misunderstanding, I think, was not so much that I misunderstood what empathy was. It's more that I misunderstood that I thought that sympathy was specifically saying that you feel the same thing with them instead of you understand what they're going through. Whereas it's almost, sympathy is like you can understand what they're going through. Yeah, it's basically the inverse to what I thought it was. Interesting. I also feel like sympathy can be patronizing, like feeling superior. Yeah, I guess there is a kind of element of that. I don't know where this misunderstanding on my part came from. I'm usually pretty good at knowing what words mean. Empaths are the opposite of sociopaths. Yeah, exactly, yeah. To echo the cat. Hey, Sloth, by the way, welcome. Empathy is an ability to feel the emotions someone else is experiencing as if it happened to you. Sympathy is more about your interaction with the person, offering some kind of support because you feel like you understand what they're going through. Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess it's like, this is just a misunderstanding for me, I suppose. Etaline, welcome. Welcome, Holger. Good evening. If you're an empathic person, it doesn't mean you're always looking to help or support the other. A sympathetic person is often seen as someone that is somewhat friendly. Yeah, that's true, actually. That's a really good way of drawing a bit of a dividing line there to some degree. And then, yeah, you're right, Smithy. Like, people do say that. And then they... And so I wonder if this is just an English thing. Like, not... It's not that it's America is the odd one out. It's like British education has sort of twisted it a little bit, or the definition that we were given at school in the UK were a little bit different. Empathy is the thing that makes you feel their pain. I sometimes feel physically sick from watching violence. Oh, geez, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that, Kat. That's really rough. It must make it hard to like watch movies and stuff, right? It's a British thing. Yeah, it's probably a British thing. A lot of stuff is. Oh, cat alert. Man, what do we had? We had like 6 cat alerts already. Yep. It's always a it is. It's always a bloody English thing. Not even just a British thing, right? Because like people in Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales, they're pretty well adjusted in comparison to people from England. I don't know what it is about people from England specifically, like us. Oh, cat alert again. There's Beef charging around like a crazy. That's hilarious. Beef like charges past, and then Gargoyle like just plods after him. That's hilarious. It's great for watching happy stuff though. I get all the happy feelings too. That's good. Yeah, that's really good. You can just like sit there watching, I don't know, just sit there watching those viral videos of people doing adorable things for each other and, you know, just feel good all day. That's good. It's funny, my mom always used to complain about movies that had violence and say that she didn't know why movies had to have violence and things like this, and I never really got it. And what's weird is like I look at it now and I think it's like a response to trauma that she probably went through, but at the same time I wonder if it could be that empath thing in terms of her feeling emotions very strongly, but then if it was, she would have responded really positively to a lot of the inverse, and she just doesn't. So like it's a weird thing. I don't think she's an empath by any means. Probably the inverse, to be honest. But oh, happy crying. Yeah, I'm glad you get to do a lot of happy crying. Happy crying is good. I can't remember when the last time was that I happy cried. Oh, who's that? That looks like an animal of some kind. It looks like Gargoyle. She's just like, oh yeah, she's just chilling. She's chilling. Cat alert again. Just constant cat alerts here. What are you doing? What are you doing? You just gonna hang out? No? Okay. She was just chilling for a minute there. Yeah, I don't know what's up with them. Maybe they've figured out. Maybe something has happened that has allowed them to understand what streaming is. You know, like maybe they've suddenly figured it out that they're on camera, and they're just like flexing it because they can just walk past and be on camera. They're getting ready to move. Yeah, they might be getting ready to move. Oh, he's here. What's up, Beef? Nope. It's just like one of them moves, and then the other one just has to move. They know the move is happening. Yeah, maybe they do. Maybe they do. But they're gonna like the new place. They got some stairs to play on. They got some corridors to run around in. They needed an emote. Yeah, they probably did. They know that we have an emote for them, so they're like just triggering it constantly. Maybe we're gonna have an earthquake. We don't want more earthquakes. We had one earthquake last year in Vegas. That was weird. In fact, we had two, didn't we? We definitely had two, because there was one when I was at home, and there's one when I was in the Rio playing poker, and an earthquake happened. That was weird. Because we're in this room with all this TV gantry stuff, like, up the top. And the room is, like, shaking backwards and forwards. And there's all of this metal infrastructure holding up lighting and things like that in the poker room at the Rio. And we're, like, looking up at it going, like, please don't fall down. Like, are we going to have to get under the poker tables at some point? Like, it was crazy. That was one of the weirdest experiences I can remember. Apparently I handled the earthquakes like a trooper. That's good. That's good to know. I didn't think I would handle them that well, but apparently I have. I've been through so many earthquakes they don't scare me anymore. Yeah, Cricket's from California. And when it comes to earthquakes, there's nobody who understands earthquakes like a Californian. Because I'm constantly just in awe of how earthquakes are just like no big deal. I mean, maybe like people in Japan understand earthquakes pretty well, but like people from Cali are kind of in that category too. Well, she told me about the concept of the big one. The earthquake that everybody in Cali has been waiting for decades. It's going to just split the West Coast open. I'm like, there's like a little 0.1% of me that's just terrified every time we go to California because of that tiny possibility that there could just be some earth-shattering earthquake at some point. You can predict the size too. Yeah, you're pretty much an earthquake expert. I feel like anybody who's born and raised in California pretty much just has a geology degree as soon as they turn 5, you know. It just kind of seems like that's the way it is. We got about 10 minutes until Ask a Neuroscientist. Dr. Rob is going to hop on to our Zoom call in a little bit. So get your questions ready. I am going to have a couple questions for Dr. Rob, I think. Something I am curious about is relating to the science of mental health as it relates to more traditional science around things like nutrition, you know, because I think that I've noticed over time the strong influence that my diet exerts over my mental well-being. And I'm curious to ask Dr. Rob about what the science is in terms of things like the gut-brain connection, like these new concepts that are being studied, things like that. So if you guys have any questions in the vein of the science area of mental health, then do jump in and ask Dr. Rob, because I'm sure he will be very happy to answer them. The second section of the stream today, after we're done with Ask a Neuroscientist, and after we might read another chapter. Depends how we're doing after the interview. Depends how we're feeling. But this afternoon's gaming stream is going to probably be a little bit of Mario Kart, I expect. I'm still kind of on the fence about these split streams, like about me taking a break in the middle, right? Because on the one hand, it's good in the sense that it makes sure that I have enough energy for the later stream, and it allows me to make sure that I'm drinking enough water and things like that. But on the other hand, the the gap in between, like I feel like a lot of people just kind of don't really come back for the gaming stream. And maybe it's not quite the same as if I were to just transition into playing a game, perhaps. Eat a line, redeem, drink some water. Thank you. And Cat, thank you. And Pony, okay. So everybody's going to make me drink water. That's good. I'm going to probably need to... the reason I don't come back is because it's during nighttime for me, so just a practical reason. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another part of it. Like, I am going to need another bottle. That's good. That's very good. That's another part of it. Like, I kind of... There's a little part of me that recognizes that a bunch of the people that watch the stream, like a lot of you guys, are in Europe, right? And if I only stream games after 3 p.m. Pacific time, then it's like after midnight for some of you. And I feel like that's not necessarily giving you guys the opportunity to enjoy the stream, you know. Final Table Boy subscribed at tier 1. Oh, I got to turn the alerts back on. Thank you, Final Table Boy. I appreciate that. 4-month streak. I think you were my second subscriber. So I very much appreciate that. Round of applause for Final Table Boy. One of the regulars. Big member of the team. FTB himself. Coming in with 5 minutes to go until Ask a Neuroscientist. So good timing. Very good timing. Yeah, so we might just go straight through, guys. We are here for the long run. I appreciate that. Very much appreciate that. We might just, you know, when we're done with Ask a Neuroscientist and we get lost connections, maybe we'll read a little. I tell you what, if you guys can keep me hydrated, we might just go straight through with Mario Kart. For me, it's because I mod for 3 other channels and I need time away from the screen. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's good. That's a very valid reason. Very valid reason to not be here. I mean, I'm not saying, like, you guys, particularly the regulars, like, I'm not saying, like, you guys, why don't you guys come and watch my gaming streams? I'm just saying, like, I feel like the gap in the middle, it's like, I don't know yet how I feel about it, you know? But we will see. It might be the best way to go. It might not be the best way to go. We shall see. We've got a few minutes. Dr. Rob is probably going to be here pretty soon, which is nice. What we're going to do is I'm going to do a quick transition with him just to make sure that the... it was nice with the new Spider-Man outfits. Yeah, yesterday was fun. Yesterday was cool. Gaming stream seems to be when we don't get trolls. Yeah, they don't troll me in the gaming stream. And what's also interesting is they don't troll me when there's more viewers. So, like, today, we've had, like, 9 people so far. Yesterday, we had 10 plus. And they didn't arrive, you know. There were no trolls. And that was cool. So I wonder if this troll likes the attention, but they don't like too much attention, right? They like to troll when there's a few people there, but they don't want the possibility that 15 people might be like, ah, fuck you, troll, etc. So the messages can get lost. Yeah, exactly. That's probably another part of it, right? Yeah. The troll messages just don't get the attention in the larger chats. So maybe the channel growth has actually just turned them off from trolling. Maybe the fact that we are doing well. Troll theory optimal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the optimal way to troll somebody would be, but I don't think there is one. What's that? Is that that's an open bracket? I don't know what is that a... Oops. Oh, I just did the thing that I said I was doing. I just dropped my ring. I gotta grab it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think they wanna troll the smaller chats for sure. Okay, I'm going to take a very quick break before Dr. Rob gets here. When he gets here, we're going to basically do a screen where my intro is just going to be scrolling, and then we'll go live for Ask a Neuroscientist. I think Zoom is going to cooperate. We should be okay, so I think we're good. You've been blocking them and reporting them. Okay, that's great. I appreciate the reporting. I didn't even know how to report them, so that's good. All right, I've got chat on this screen now. Dr. Rob is going to be on this screen. I'm going to take a quick break, and hopefully he will be here very soon. Okay, I'm back. I'm not sure if he's here yet. I may need to be on this screen for a second. Prior to... Yeah, okay. So he's not here yet. Oh, damn it. He needs the Zoom again. Okay. 1 second. All right, I think we're about to get started, so we shall see. We shall see if he makes it in. Okay, yes, I think we're going to get started in a moment, so I'll see you guys shortly. Yeah, I know. All right, guys, I think we're back. Zoom is not working very well. Let me just... damn it. I thought it was going to work, and it's not working. Wow, somebody's gifting subs in the channel. Thank you, Etaline, for the gifted subs. You're hearing me. You guys are hearing me right now, but you're not seeing us for some reason. I have no idea why you're not seeing us. Let me do this differently.
Have you ever run stream off Discord?
I have done on someone else's stream, and it seems to work fairly well, I think. So maybe we'll just use Discord next time, because
Sure.
it seems like the Zoom is not going to cooperate particularly
Want to play?
willingly. There we go. I think we're up. All I have to do is just cut it down, because what it does is it seems like it doesn't. If I add the source to Streamlabs before I start the Zoom call, it doesn't want to do it. But anyway, we are here. So thank you everybody for sticking with me despite the technical issues. We are back for episode number 2 of Ask a Neuroscientist with myself and Dr. Rob Tarswell. Welcome, Dr. Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good.
We bid a sad but joyful farewell to my other cast, which was Viral Transmissions. We promised from our premiere episode that we would wrap it up once vaccines were approved and being distributed, and that took place. So after 39 episodes, we called it a day.
Wow. Okay.
I guess called it 10 months.
That's a lot of podcasting. 10 months worth every weekend.
Yeah, every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, without fail. So now it all exists for posterity. You know, the overview of the science, the mainstreams of disinformation, the counter arguments to those, and kind of an interesting chronological progression of our own grappling with the science as we kind of ourselves and the world got to understand the virus a little better. We started it was March the 12th or March the 14th when the NBA announced that they were suspending their season. And that was the first domino, and then everything toppled that weekend. And,
I remember that. Because that was the same day. It was about the same 2-hour period that Tom Hanks got it. And everyone was like, sports are canceled, and Tom Hanks got the virus. Like, now it's real. That's
everybody was paying attention.
Yeah.
So that was a Thursday, and that Sunday was our premiere episode. We thought, okay, there's going to be disinformation about this. We need to get out there, get out in front of it. I don't know if we succeeded, but we tried.
Sounds like you did. So congrats. But outside of that, I guess you're back to the regular sort of day job of research and things like that right now?
Regular day job. Well, for me, mostly the regular day job is interpreting PET scans.
Okay.
So mostly the bread and butter is oncology. So whole body PET scans looking for the spread patterns of different kinds of malignancy. So lung cancer, breast cancer, melanoma, which is a kind of skin cancer, head and neck cancer, bowel cancer, pancreatic cancer. There's sort of lots of different types, and we're looking for local disease, spread to lymph nodes, and then spread to other areas throughout the body. Using that same technology to look at people's brains with neurological or psychiatric disease, and then doing assessments for courtrooms mostly. I do a lot of expert witness testimony in cases of individuals who've developed neuropsychiatric symptoms after an accident that involves some kind of closed head injury. And often the question that's kind of being asked of me is, all right, did the head injury cause this syndrome? Is it likely? And what's the level of disability? What's the prognosis? What kind of supports does this individual need? And then I sort of kind of marshal all the forces of clinical assessment, imaging assessment, and create a report for the court.
I see. Interesting. And is that relatively common then to see psychiatric conditions manifest as a result of physical brain injury?
Yeah. It very much depends. Okay. So often, say individuals with severe traumatic brain injury, where there's a significant amount of, like a skull fracture, a depressed skull fracture, and like death to brain tissue. Those individuals, because the injuries may be so severe, may lose insight and actually be, if emotionally they're not impacted by kind of a flattening of mood, which is very common, may often have no insight into their injury and be quite chipper. So it's the individuals who have more the mild to moderate range traumatic brain injuries who often run into difficulties. The outcome, I mean, 85% of all mild traumatic brain injuries, 6 to 8 weeks later or within a few months, resolve, and individuals kind of just carry on through their lives. It's that 15% that don't. That's where we get called in. And often there are questions like, well, the CT scan is normal, the MRI scan is normal, but there's abnormal cognitive testing. So what's going on? And we often bring in functional brain imaging, looking at metabolic or blood flow patterns to see if there's something that's below the level of an MRI that we can detect at a kind of a molecular or cellular level. Because an MRI is really great down to about 1 cubic millimeter, but within a cubic millimeter, there's about 85 million neurons. So it's not, it depends on your scale within the universe, but a cubic millimeter is not necessarily a tiny thing. From the neuron's perspective, that's a vast volume. So we're interested in trying to capture the evidence or the telltale signatures of reduced metabolism within neurons that may structurally look completely normal. And from there, we can kind of correlate with cognitive testing and then kind of make the case.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that it's sort of gratifying in a way to hear that courtrooms are actually doing their homework and consulting with someone who's highly qualified when it comes to making certain judgments. You know, do you think it's taught you anything being involved in the legal system in that way about anything interesting?
Well, it has. I think one thing I like about courtrooms, the role of the expert witness is to educate the court and not take a position for or against any party.
Right.
But of course, you're being hired by one side or the other.
Yeah.
So there's always this internal pull to want to please the person that's paying you, right?
Yeah.
So there's this internal battle that you're always kind of struggling with, and the as one judge in Canada put it a number of years ago, in the ideal world, the expert's report would be exactly the same regardless of who ordered it.
Yeah.
And it would be impossible to tell which party had ordered the report.
Right.
So that's a standard I attempt to adhere to. Of course, I'm blinded by my own unconscious biases like anybody else is. And one thing that's very interesting, if you want to find out about yourself, get cross-examined a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. I don't know. There might be. I almost feel like I hope there's not too many people in chat who've had that experience. But I know one of our regulars, Final Table Boy, has experience working as a police officer. So he might have been in that situation. I don't know.
Sure.
I can imagine those types of instances. You learn a lot.
Well, you're certainly open to, and you can tell. Well, in retrospect, it's hard to tell in the moment, but you can tell in retrospect if you were having a bad day in court, if the cross-examination's questions are getting you defensive and getting your back up. That means they've honed in on something. Nobody in that process is a slouch.
Right.
So they're gunning for you, man. And their goal is to try and impeach your evidence or impeach your credibility as an expert. And they'll kind of go after everything. So after a while, you can kind of tell where the unserious weaknesses are, because they also, the lawyers are absolutely advocates. And so they'll try and pounce on anything, even if that means stretching, bending, warping. And your job is to just simply, answer the questions. And you can't, as one lawyer explained it to me, you can't be an advocate for any party, but you're always allowed to be an advocate for your own opinion. So
interesting.
That's sort of where I draw the line. So I can tell if I'm up against the more clownish cross-examiners who start with very imperious statements about the Hippocratic Oath, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, this is going to be a long afternoon. Versus the ones who kind of get right into the meat. Those are the ones I'm more scared of.
Yeah.
Because, you've read my report.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine there's probably a broad spectrum there of people who have all kinds of different approaches and different goals in mind as to how they're going to attempt to
Right.
manipulate you to meet their own ends. So that
Right.
I think we could almost do a separate podcast just about your experiences in the courtroom. But I feel
Right.
like
Yeah.
I feel like the neuroscience topic itself is probably where we should stay for the time being. So I have
Sure.
I know we haven't yet started on the path of having specific topics in mind for these episodes or anything like that, but I have a couple things that I've been curious about that have
Okay.
just come to mind over the past week or so that I thought it might be interesting to talk about. What's come to my mind is that on a personal level, I've learned a ton over the course of like the COVID experience of being at home a lot about the ways in which certain specific things impact my mental health in the diet and nutrition area. And I've had a lot of conversations with people. We had Jody Savage on this podcast, who's a nutritionist. I've talked with a bunch of other people about different nutrition methodologies and how they how they may or may not help me. I've experimented with a bunch of different diets, and what I'm really curious about is how much research goes on the scientific level into the interaction between diet and gut health and things like that, and
Right.
mental health. Is there a lot of involvement between the sort of mental health scientists and the nutrition scientists that goes on?
There's certainly lots of research on diet and mental health,
Mhm.
and the research on diet is extraordinarily difficult.
Okay.
And there's a number of reasons for that. So it's very difficult to get valid results because first, the main method that we use to assess someone's diet are instruments where we ask them to recall what they've eaten.
Yeah.
And when attempts are made to validate those instruments, they fail spectacularly. People are very bad at recalling their diets. People have a lot of diet-related shame.
Yes.
And people don't necessarily want to admit that they ate a bag of ding-dongs last night. Right?
What's a ding dong? Is that a Canadian thing?
It's an American thing, actually.
Okay.
It was
I don't know what that is.
It was a hostess, basically chocolate cream-filled treat, sort of like a Twinkie, but
right.
chocolate.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so nobody wants to admit that they ate a bag of Twinkies or Ding Dongs.
Mm-hmm.
And so people just are too embarrassed to admit what they're really eating.
Mm-hmm.
And so recall bias is an enormous problem in diet studies.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
And then the flip side is, okay, well, what if we give people a nutrition diary to track what they eat?
Mm-hmm.
When you independently audit them, they lie. Yes, I'm eating a salad right now. No, I didn't have any dressing on the salad.
So it's really we're really at the stage where people's willingness to lie about what they eat is actually compromising like nutrition research.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So it's very, very difficult unless you are literally like somehow surreptitiously like recording what people are eating, or you control their diet. So you've got to like have them almost in a camp setting where they're eating at a cafeteria.
Like just lock them in a room and just observe them for weeks on end. And then of course that if you do that, well, now you're locking them in a room for weeks, and it's not exactly going to help their mental health very much, right? So
how's your mood today?
Yeah,
terrible.
Exactly. So it's it's fascinating to hear that, because I think that we're all often caught up, trying to understand the relationship between what we put in our bodies and how we end up feeling, right? And
critical questions. But we have no necessarily good path to answer those. The other thing that's really interesting is in Canada anyway, and I'm not sure about in the United States, in Canada, the protected term is dietitian.
I see.
So anyone can call themselves a nutritionist.
Okay.
Publish books, go on podcasts, make big claims about romaine lettuce. But dietitians belong to an accountability and standards body where their claims have to be moderated by the available evidence.
I don't know if that's true in the US or not, actually. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe one or two of the Americans in chat might know. I'm not sure, but that's interesting. So is there do you find that there's sort of two standards there in terms of what dietitians would recommend, and then everybody else who just kind of have
Absolutely.
all these ideas?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's the nutritionist who will tend to make the claim about silver bullet foods or silver
Right.
bullet supplements, right? And
Yeah.
this is calming. This will help you sleep. This is a brain booster. Whereas dietitians will say, broadly speaking, you need 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day. It should be X percentage carbohydrates, X percentage proteins. So the stuff that we do know isn't terribly sexy.
Right.
There really aren't a lot of silver bullets. I mean, I think honestly, in terms of food science, the last silver bullet was vitamin C and scurvy, vitamin C and scurvy, vitamin D and rickets, and the so the discovery of micronutrients, maybe within the last century, and beyond that, it gets very, very hard to make specific dietary claims. Even say big claims like the link between cholesterol and heart disease, which absolutely exists, right? And for a long time, the advice was, cut back on dietary cholesterol. Well, it turns out your liver is your own internal Brutus, and if you it'll make as much cholesterol as it wants to make, regardless of how much you're eating in your diet. And so dietary modification can play a helpful role in individuals with borderline nutritional or cholesterol problems. But the changes have to be pretty radical to get the needle to move just a little bit, because your liver has its own idea about what a normal level needs to be. Even if it's absolutely trashing all your blood vessels in your brain, your heart, and the rest of your body, it doesn't care, man. So it's just going to keep pumping out low density lipoproteins all day long. And that's why for a lot of individuals, they need, medications. So even in situations where we find risk factors that are linked to diet, it turns out that it's very, very difficult to find those, again, I'm overusing this term, but it's very difficult to find those kinds of silver bullet kinds of solutions. Now, I know this is almost kind of heretical within especially the poker world, because, 12 hours doesn't go by before I see some poker player somewhere advocating some new amazing final table diet. And it's just up and down, mostly hogwash.
Sure.
Do you? I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. I'll just sort of finish off the ramble with this, right? If you found something that you find is tasty and meets the food pyramid nutritional guidelines and helps you, and you subjectively feel as though it boosts your concentration and your mood, hey, that's great, right? Because we have so little control over so much of our lives. Diet ends up being the one thing where you can exert absolute control. Unless somebody actually sticks a nasogastric tube in you, the one thing you can control in your life is what goes in your face. And so if exerting that control and simply taking an interest in your diet leads to positive changes and improved autonomy, then, keep doing that. But it probably has a lot more to do with just that sort of psychological reorientation towards wanting to eat in a mindful manner versus specifically whatever it is that's being eaten.
Okay, interesting. And then how much is there a sort of scientific accounting for variations between the way individuals respond to certain things? Because for me as an individual, like earlier in the year, one thing that I did was I went to a company that does DNA testing, and they said you have a high sensitivity to carbohydrates, you have low sensitivity to this, and like all these different things. And I got this great profile of my nutrition needs and my suitability for certain types of exercise and all sorts of different things. And obviously the implication of the fact that this is a thing and you can do DNA testing is that there is a wide variation in how people respond to different things and how people's brains react, how people's emotional frameworks respond. So I'm guessing that if we're already at a position where the science is complicated because the research is difficult, then accounting for variations in population is probably even harder, right? In terms of what we know, in terms of what we know about how diet affects mental health.
Absolutely. And in terms of DNA testing, there are all sorts of companies out there that are making all sorts of pretty wild claims about what they can determine from your DNA. Whereas if you talk to geneticists, they're like, we have no idea if that's true or not.
Yeah, fair enough.
So be wary of any commercial company that's happy to take your money and tell you that is true about you, because these kinds of genetic risk markers are not well defined, may not even exist, right? Because the thought, these days is that, in terms of, the old sort of 70s, 80s, 90s, the idea was the gene for X, because we did find genes for things, right? So we found the Huntington gene for Huntington's disease. We found ApoE4, recessive, increasing risk for Alzheimer's disease. But very rapidly beyond that, it's almost like, okay, we know that genes code proteins. And after that, the way that proteins interact, it's like, blah.
Yeah.
The complexity explodes like a chessboard, like interlocking chessboards.
Yeah.
and thousands of pieces. So for a company to kind of come along and say, and I did this too. I did the 23andMe thing.
Yeah.
A number of years ago, and then I had privacy concerns, and I downloaded my file and had them delete all my data. Who knows if they actually did that or not? But I asked them to.
You just kind of have to trust them when they say, "Well, trust us. We'll get rid of everything. We won't keep your data."
Don't worry. Yeah. Because I got concerned once the mission of 23andMe changed to, hey, we have this great big DNA registry, which we're going to farm out to pharmaceutical companies for early stage drug testing and drug discovery. And I'm like, I didn't sign on for that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I parted ways with them ethically. So we again, and this is sort of a general theme within quasi scientific approaches to things, or pseudoscientific approaches to things. It's that silver bullet. We found that one thing, and if you just add 5 grams of kale to your smoothie, this genetic risk factor will be addressed, right? And we're just horrendously complicated creatures. And the reality is, we know a lot of stuff, right? We definitely do. I mean, there are mRNA vaccines literally in trucks rolling across the world right now to immunize us against the coronavirus, right? It's why I don't have a Sunday night vlogcast anymore. So be careful what you promise people. But looking at very specific microclaims, we know kind of the boundary of sort of the broad boundary of health, disease, science, but narrowing that down to any specific claim within there is very, very, very difficult.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, on that same note, let's talk a little bit about the specifics, maybe without going into the kind of level of detail that might be over our heads as lay people, but let's talk a bit about the specifics of, for example, like when we've all been through this kind of experience where you eat something trashy and it feels good in the moment, and then afterwards you feel like crap, right? We've all been through that. So biologically, what's going on in the brain when we have that experience?
Well, a lot of that, it's a good question, right? It's a good question. I'm not sure there's a good answer.
Okay, interesting.
There's certainly a number of answers I can theorize or hypothesize about, right? So, the one thing you want to notice first is that this never happens in kids.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Kids don't eat treats and then say, oh, I ate treats and now I feel terrible.
Yeah.
Right? This is uniquely an adult phenomenon. So this tells you, or suggests or hints, kids eat treats and they want more treats, and they eat those and then they just want more treats, and they eat those and they just want more treats, right? We were all told when we were kids, don't eat all your Halloween candy or you're going to get a stomach ache. And every one of us ate all the Halloween candy and did not get a stomach ache, right?
Yeah.
So it's just this lie we keep telling kids. And so one of the things I wonder about is the degree to which we now have so much cultural programming and stigmatization around diet, or what, you know, a lot of psychological researchers are now calling orthorexia, which is almost like a mental disorder to eat straight, eat properly.
Ah, interesting.
And how much of that bad feeling afterwards is perhaps to some degree underlined by shame, underlined by guilt, and really has nothing to do with what you've just eaten. Because as Homo sapiens, we are really omnivorous. You know, I'm a vegetarian because I can be. Lots of people eat meat, and they're fine with that. Like we, for whatever, you know, whatever reason, and it's led to significant evolutionary advantage, right? We're now, you know, with us and our domesticated animals, we're over 99% of the planet's biomass. That's you know, from an evolutionary point of view, that's a wild success story. Now, whether we'll survive our success is an open question.
Yeah.
But from the evolutionary point of view, holy cow, this species has really been successful. And it probably comes down to a few things. One, we're horny all the time. We don't go into heat. Well, we do. It happens around age 12, 13, and then just never shuts off. Right? So if you do that to a species, that species is going to have a lot of babies. Two, we can eat a wide diet, which is not, we don't know. You know, a lot of animals eat very specific diets in a very specific niche. Now, maybe they could eat wider diets. I don't know. But the reality is we do eat a very wide diet all across the planet, right? So for us in North America to now have this new phenomenon, and this is not, you know, this is not an old phenomenon. People in the 70s didn't agonize at night. I mean, if you look at 70s cookbooks, man, that is awful stuff. You know, like, look at those Jell-O salads. Just terrifying things. And, you know, I grew up in the 70s, so I know what this is about. But we didn't, you know, so, you know, junk was the main course. And we didn't sit there kind of feeling bad at night. This idea kind of crept in, which makes me think, okay, is this a sociocultural phenomenon more than intrinsically related to biological factors around the diet? Like, I know if I drink some bleach accidentally, I'm definitely going to be feeling bad after that.
Right.
And I know, you know, and I understand the biological pathway, metabolic alkalosis, well, in addition to kind of, you know, mucosal chemical burns. But I'm very wary of anyone offering biological explanations for these kind of dietary factors. So I guess what I'm, you know, the overall message here is kind of dietary freedom, right? Don't be hard on yourself. You know, there's things that you like, there's things you don't like, and unless you are like severely restricting, you know, you're going to be fine, right? How many of us, when we were 6 years old, would eat nothing but bare hot dogs and noodles? And that was enough. Somehow that was enough, right? We made it, right? We made it through our carbivore phase and grew up sort of normal, functional, healthy adult lives. So somehow kids, even hyper restrictive kids, manage to get through. Now, there are cases where a kid is so restrictive that they can actually get into nutritional deficiencies, like a kid who absolutely refuses dairy can get into problems with rickets, things like that. But that's extraordinarily rare. And those kids get into the hospital and they're seen by psychiatric teams and dietary teams, and you use kind of, you know, behavior modification principles to try and get them to expand their diet, yada, yada, yada. But for the vast majority of us, you know, if say the spectrum of diets is like on a curve like this, right? There's so much normal variability that we get through and we're just fine.
Yeah. I think that's good insight. It's nice to hear that from someone who's actually, you know, actually has the word doctor in front of their name.
Right. Yeah.
And
eat what you want, you know?
Right. And Merrily W
enough.
says in chat as well, like, personally, my mental health improved dramatically when I stopped obsessing about the types of food I ate and just started eating what tastes good. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of room for that. And I think that the funny part for me of the experience of trying to learn what kind of diet works best for me is that it's been just as much of an emotional experience as it has been one of like trial and error and actually just seeing like, oh, can I handle eating this, you know, or like, should I not, you know? And And my wife also has had, experiences where she had a lot of emotional stress around food for quite a while, and then now she's gluten free, and it's
Okay.
like completely just changed her life in terms of her relationship with food, I think. And so like
All right.
there are so many different responses that we have, emotionally
Yeah.
and in all kinds of different physical ways. I think that the maybe the most powerful thing about that, what you've said there, is just the idea of how strong the shame impulse is, like
Oh
the
man.
social
Yeah.
conditioning around the shame of it. Um,
Yeah.
and then on a basic level, we've talked about well, I mean, I sort of framed the question initially as what's going on in the brain where we have the initial high, and then we have the sort of dip, afterwards.
Yeah.
But that initial high, I would assume that at least on a basic level, we kind of know what that is, right? Scientifically, we know what's going on in the brain when we get that. Is it just dopamine?
Well, yeah. So a lot of that has to do, like, if you're eating something that's really, really tasty, right? And food scientists have definitely zeroed in on kind of taste space and
Right.
how to hijack that to create more and more rewarding experiences. It's not an accident that sugary treats have more and more sugar, and salty treats have more and more salt,
Yeah.
and fatty treats have more and more fat when you kind of go across time, because they figured out, that certain tastes can definitely hijack reward circuitry, because eating has to be rewarding or else we don't do it. There are certain experiments done in mice where if you kind of take a little hot needle and zap their reward center, they'll starve to death. You
Wow.
surround them with food and they won't eat because they're just not interested in eating anymore.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
trippy, because that sort of implies that, like, I don't know if I heard you say this somewhere recently on Twitter or something, but it was this idea of, if we're not motivated to do anything, we just don't do anything.
Well,
The motivation
right,
is
yeah.
important. Like, we have to have motivation to do something, and we can't just be like really zen and neutral all the time. I think
Right.
that's
Yeah. You were talking about while you were in the main.
yes,
And just
yeah.
absolutely crashing up against
Oh,
fate.
that was it. Yeah, it was in chat.
And
It wasn't on Twitter. It was in chat.
yeah,
Yeah.
you were talking about, that kind of that need to kind of stay detached
Yeah.
from results
Right.
in the moment,
Mhm.
because you had pretty brutal day.
Yeah.
The dealer didn't do you any favors
No.
when you were trying to run in the main.
The fictional online dealer that we all like
Yeah.
to blame.
The
But
random
doesn't
number
actually exist.
generator was not your friend.
It was not.
I think
Yes.
you kind of swang below variance.
I did.
I think that's
Yeah.
fair to say.
That's definitely true. But
And,
yeah, you were talking about that, how like our natural motivation center in the brain is something we can't get around. Like, we can't just pretend that we are completely indifferent to what happens.
Right. Yeah, if food's not rewarding, we don't eat. If sex
Mhm.
isn't rewarding, we don't make babies. So the reward center fundamentally is critical to survival. So creatures that have reward centers have a huge advantage over other kinds of life forms that don't have reward centers. So we have our own built-in reward centers. And what the amazing discovery that Egyptians made 20,000 years ago, when they accidentally drank rotting barley and water, was that, there's this somewhat unpleasant tasting drink, but it's exceptionally rewarding. And they discovered beer.
Is that
right?
That's literally how it happened? I didn't know that.
I don't know the full history,
Oh, okay.
right? But I think, I believe alcohol was first sort of, you have to kind of paint in the details somewhat.
Sure.
But it didn't. Alcohol definitely didn't spring fully formed from the forehead of Zeus like Athena. There would have been some kind of accidental discovery leading to the steps of, like, well, hey, why don't we try and do this on purpose and make it taste less bad? Leading to alcohol. And that was kind of the first discovery that, hey, you can hijack the reward system. And the number one, plight around the world is probably alcohol use disorder, in terms of the total amount of human misery and social cost and global cost. It'd be hard to put a price tag on that. And why is that happening? Because drinking feels so good. Right?
Yeah.
Well, you can get versions of that from food that they give a little bit of a reward. Well, why don't we manipulate taste space this way? Oh, here's this much of a reward.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people talk about, oh, I absolutely have to eat X, it's not kind of full on gonna ruin your life and find you sleeping on a park bench, like an alcohol use disorder or pathological gambling or something like that. But there are definitely aspects to that. You know, ask people who love cheese what life would be like without cheese, and they would say, you might as well just kill me now. And lots of people have that thing, which for them is life itself, the amount of satisfaction and pleasure they derive from eating it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we've got a little bit of conversation in chat about the ethical concerns of vegetarianism and things like that. And you know, my wife and I have both been vegetarians since the beginning of this year, and I know you've been for a lot longer, but you know, I've found that in itself has had, I think, it's hard to know exactly how much of it is because of this and how much of it is other factors, but I've felt a lot better about what I'm eating. Sorry, I'm just laughing because the cat says I would die for cheese in chat. Yeah,
you're not alone. You're not alone.
You're not alone. You're definitely not alone. I'm not sure if I'm in that camp or not. I guess if I'm not sure, I probably am not, but I'm close to it. I'm definitely close to it. But yeah, I think that it's super interesting to sort of to think about the interaction there between these physical influences, these neurological influences, the rewards that all of these things that we consume give us, and then the actual, you know, the mechanisms in our brain that are designed to sort of make us want these things, you know, where
because when you are say, you know, to I do this advisedly, but to tell a kind of an evolutionary just so story, it really motivates you to drink and to eat if particular things that just so happen to be really vital are very rewarding when you find them and eat them. That keeps you motivated to get the next one, the next one, the next one. Because it is probably really, really tedious to go looking for the next berry and the next berry and the next berry, and there's a field mouse. And I can kind of actually relate to this experience somewhat from an experience I had with my wife. There was a certain kind of toothpaste that had gone off the market, and we discovered to our horror. And she has sensitive teeth, and really this was the only one that had worked for her.
I see.
And so we made this plan and kind of literally went into kind of urban hunter-gatherer mode. We had a list of stores. We went in, we checked the toothpaste supplies, and finally there was this one Hail Mary that we thought, okay, it's never going to be here, but we're nearby. We have to look. And it was the Army and Navy store, which is a Canadian surplus store.
Yeah.
And they had 18 tubes of it. And
did she just buy all of them? Did you literally just buy all of them?
We were just like vibrating with excitement. Yeah. How much should I buy? I said, all of it.
Yeah.
We did. And it is amazing the euphoria we both felt for about the next hour over this experience. And it sort of just struck me at that time, like, I bet this is what it's like when you are hunting for the tribe and your supplies are low and it's not certain where the next meal is coming from. And there before you rises the woolly mammoth in the plain and has no idea you're standing there with your spear, and boom.
Yeah. And
you get it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that like, my wife in chat is saying that urban hunter-gatherer is awesome. It is, like, that way of thinking of it, the idea of you're out there like in the wilderness hunting for toothpaste, like that. It kind of sounds like that's what it is, and then you find 18 tubes of it, and you just grab it all. That's a really interesting. It's really interesting in terms of what it kind of shows us about how powerful that reward that reward mechanism is.
Can
right?
Be, right? Yeah. And we could both also feel the depression rising up, the kind of the sense of futility, almost like that's the mechanism that's like, okay, you're starting to overinvest in this now. You've got to conserve your energy. You've got to redirect your resources elsewhere. But then we find it, and then there's the payoff, and still, even just thinking about it now, I just recall that excitement. I'm like, I can't remember being that excited about something so basic,
Yeah.
possibly ever.
Right. Yeah. And so the I think we hear a lot in our I don't want to say necessarily in our culture, but like we hear the word dopamine thrown around, right? In terms of people talk about the impact that dopamine has on how we, internalize these ideas of reward. Is it really as simple as when you do something that is pleasurable or rewarding, you get dopamine, and then your brain just wants more dopamine because it feels good?
It's a good question. And there's some research that sort of attempts to look at this. It seems that not only is dopamine present when there is an actually rewarding experience in the environment, so you're thirsty and you get water, but there's elevated dopamine in the reward circuit when you have test subjects who are thirsty and you got them in the MRI scanner and you show them pictures of cold water. So the anticipation of a reward also seems to trigger dopamine. So it has multiple functions. And there's also noradrenaline, which is another central nervous system neurotransmitter that seems to be involved in reward. Noradrenaline and adrenaline are both, noradrenaline is produced in the CNS in the brainstem. Adrenaline is produced in the adrenal gland, surprise, surprise. But they both have very similar kinds of activity centrally and also seem to be involved in the reward mechanism. So there's a thought that the reward mechanism not only is involved in rewarding you, but in the anticipation of reward. And it also seems to provide some kind of a measure between the mismatch of anticipated reward and actual reward.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so
and how it does all that from one molecule is unknown.
So what's like this is really interesting. I don't know if this is even something that there is science on, but it's like when you talk about things like the dopamine actually being elevated just from thinking about that possibility of reward.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, that surely that has to be like a very complicated interaction between the visual perception of what they're seeing, or the sort of cognitive perception of, like, I mean, people are joking about chocolate cake in chat, but like if you are really hungry and you think about a chocolate cake and your dopamine level rises slightly, there's a really interesting interaction there going on between your brain's cognitive ability to just perceive a chocolate cake and then your body recognizing that the visual cue of perceiving a chocolate cake and imagining a chocolate cake in your mind, that is reminding it of what a chocolate cake feels like to eat, and then that's triggering dopamine. Is that kind of what's going on?
Yeah.
Wow.
So somehow dopamine is involved in both the experience of reward, but also craving. So the anticipation of reward.
Yeah.
And obviously anybody who's lived any kind of a life understands the difference between craving a thing and having the thing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, absolutely, I suppose. Yeah. And I think what's funny is we're so prone to so many things giving us this sense of anticipation that kind of falls into that craving territory. But then when we actually get the thing, it's disappointing in a certain way, right? So if in an instance like that, what's happening there? Is that like we anticipated the dopamine and we didn't get it?
Good question. I don't know if we have good answers to that, right?
Okay.
But psychologically, it's interesting, and that's very common, right? And that ties back to that whole question about we eat something, we feeling good while we eat it, and we have regret later.
Yeah.
How much of that is that mechanism where, oh, I guess this isn't heaven.
Yeah.
Right? I haven't hit the final level. Damn. I guess I have to just keep living my life.
And I feel like it's not just we're at the point where we're not just talking about food now, because I feel like it happens with so many things in our culture. Like how often, in fact, it's happening right now in video games. You probably have no awareness of this because I know you're not like exactly clued up on the gaming universe, but there's a game that's just come out called Cyberpunk 2077, which it's been in development for 8 years. It's been delayed, a dozen times or something over the past couple of years. It stars Keanu Reeves. It's like the biggest budget game that's happened in a long time. And then it came out last week, and everybody had been anticipating this for 8 years and all this stuff, so much hype. And then it turned out that the game is great, but on the current sort of generation of consoles, other than not the ones that have just come out, like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, but the PS4 and the Xbox One, which some people have had for 5-7 years, when you play the game on those consoles, it runs like shit, and it's like basically not playable, right? And this is
this decade's No Man's Sky.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, and so like there was a review yesterday by IGN of the console version of Cyberpunk, and they give it like a 4 out of 10. And if you play it on PC or if you play it on a new console, they give it like a 9 out of 10, right? So it's like living up to the hype, but if you play it in a certain circumstance, you're going to be deeply disappointed. And there's a lot of people out there right now who are disappointed, and that sheer sense of like, you know, we were anticipating something for literally years, and then we get it, and it can't possibly ever live up to expectations. It's almost like you almost start to feel at a certain point that there's an inverse relationship between anticipation of the reward and then the actual feeling of the reward, because that social conditioning kicks in, like you say. And when you're anticipating something to be literally the best thing ever, you know, when you're anticipating it to be such a reward to your brain that just, for example, sitting there and playing this video game is going to be the greatest experience of your life. Like at a certain point, that conditioning is going to, there's no amount of dopamine that your brain could get that would fulfill that on a cognitive level. Do you think that's probably accurate?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
See, here's where we have to kind of admit that we're kind of back to the answer somewhere in this circle, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you which one.
Absolutely, and I think that certainly we can at least observe from people's tendencies in how people react to certain things. Like it's so rare in our culture that a video game, a movie, a book, whatever it is that the culture is anticipating for a long period of time. You know, probably something that comes to mind is going to be the next A Song of Ice and Fire book by George R.R. Martin. When that is finally released, after what's it going to be? Like, even if it came out before the end of the year, it would be 9 years. So it's probably going to end up being a decade of this book being written.
Right.
Like that level of anticipation can't possibly be met on a broad level. And then you get a lot of unhappiness, you get a lot of disappointment, you get a lot of people trying to sort of maybe deal with the consequences of, like, they were expecting somehow this huge dopamine reward. They were expecting this incredible experience, and then when they don't get that, it becomes maybe difficult to deal with on some level, I guess.
Yeah, and what's interesting is unfortunately it's important for survival to have these frustrating experiences, because that kind of puts us back into the search pattern of getting needs fulfilled. Yeah, and because if you really were completely happy, sitting there like a mouse, you starve to death surrounded by plenty.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, again, here's one of evolution's blessings, which is also a curse. We're cursed with this need to always be striving and to never be content.
Yeah.
But we're also kind of blessed with that, because that's the thing that gets you in your car and back to work, and working for a boss that you hate.
Yeah,
to make that paycheck.
It's the thing that gives you a desire to provide yourself with enough food that you can continue to live.
Yeah, and evolution doesn't care about your existential dilemma.
Right.
Right.
And that's the funny part of it, really, that we're like, whatever dilemma we might be going through, we still have these evolutionary mechanisms that are built into us, and even our own cognitive processing can convince us of a certain thing, but it can convince us that we're not very enthusiastic about life, but we're still getting up every morning and eating food to keep ourselves sustained, and we're still doing the things that actually perpetuate living. So in a funny way, there's a dissonance there.
And there's a tendency in us to kind of look for that thing that will finally satisfy all needs and wants.
Yeah.
And, you see it anytime you walk through a casino on your way to the card room. You see all the people sitting there and playing the pit games, playing the slot machines, and they're having these microcycles of reward, frustration, craving, reward, frustration, craving, and it's a very potent way to kind of suck money out of your wallet.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to address chat for a minute, Cricket, that's my wife, says, so what happens in the brain when you want something for years and years and then you can't have it? That is a good question. Let's get the good question emote going for that.
It's sort of it kind of depends on the brain, right? Because it really depends. It comes down to, again, how flexible and adaptable you are as an adult to be able to tolerate frustration. So, a lot of people, their grand plans and designs come to ruin, and they move on to other things. Or let me go find a link that's going to be kind of.
Oh, we got a link. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll say welcome to Commodore 256, who hasn't been around in our chat for a while. So I'm glad Commodore's back. Welcome. Good to have you here. I expect the book to just not suck. Yeah, I mean, I hope that it doesn't suck. And Marksmon, welcome, Marksmon. If that's who I think it is from Twitter, I think that's Mario from Twitter. So welcome, Mario, if that's you. And yeah, that's an interesting point from Smithy right there as well. Like I feel like I was kind of taught that as well, and I think a lot of people in the UK probably are, that it's somehow better to be a pessimist than an optimist. And that it's saving yourself from harm, because you shouldn't expect much of life. Like, you shouldn't expect to get what you want out of life, shouldn't expect to be happy, things like that. And it's an interesting sort of perspective, because I think that the reality is, even when you are a pessimist, you can very easily still be disappointed. And it's it's funny because it's not really, I think that sort of philosophy doesn't really do what it says on the tin, so to speak. That's the I don't know if that's a thing that's lost on Americans to say that, but it's from a commercial that we used to have in the UK, and I don't know. You sound like you get it. Maybe it's the same phrase in Canada. I don't know.
Well, I mean, So there's no way to predict how any individual brain and therefore person react. So here's the story of
there we go.
Carico, who was the inventor of the mRNA vaccine. And everyone thinks, wow, she's a genius. But she's a genius that spent 40 years being fired and not funded and dismissed from jobs because everybody thought that the mRNA idea for a vaccine was lunacy and completely not worth investing any time in. But she kept after it for 40 years. And
wow.
She's in her 60s now, but she's going to be, wealthy beyond her dreams. She's going to end up with a Nobel Prize in medicine, assuming that the committee, you have to be living to be a Nobel laureate. So don't sit back too long there, Nobel committee. And she has probably opened a doorway to an entirely new branch of vaccine science, because anything that exists as a protein was first, DNA makes RNA, makes protein. That's kind of biochemistry in a nutshell. And so RNA is kind of the middle step before. So, think of the DNA, that's like your disk drive. RNA is when you kind of call a program into RAM to execute it. And then protein is that execution.
Right.
Well, anything that is protein, we can now develop a vaccine against. So we can potentially vaccinate against cancers, all sorts of viruses that have been tricky. This absolutely is the beginning of a new revolution in vaccine science, and that will pay untold benefits and dividends within our lifetimes. Now, just imagine if she'd been a normal human, or say like me, after year 2 or 3 or so, like, I'm putting this on a shelf and moving on to other things.
Yeah.
So the humanity will benefit forever because of her wildly irrational, dogmatic belief in the idea of an mRNA vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could have missed out on this. We absolutely could have missed out on this, and we never would have known.
Yeah. And that's a really, it's sort of a sobering thought, really, because it sort of, it calls into question, like, we want to, we all like to think that we act rationally, and then we all also recognize that we can be somewhat irrational at times, maybe. But then I think most of us would not consider, like, we would say, like, if you're doing something for 40 years and that's something that's irrational, you would not think that would have a positive outcome for anybody, really, because if it's in that category of irrational, then we look at that as unproductive, or it's not what should be engaged in, or something like that.
Right.
You know, it's just
even to the
interesting.
point where, you know, beyond year 10 or so, your colleagues are starting to feel sorry for you, or they're starting to laugh at you. You've been written off and rejected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a case of wildly irrational optimism that just happened to be right.
Yeah.
And that brings up really interesting research on optimists versus pessimists. Pessimists are much better at realistically surveying a situation. There's no doubt about this. Optimists are not realistic at surveying situations. And yet, time and time again, optimists have better life outcomes.
Wow.
So why is that? Because they just keep throwing themselves against the door, against the door, against the door, and every once in a while, that door crashes open.
Yeah. Wow.
But if you try the door and it's locked and you go away, well, it was realistic, but you didn't get that opportunity. And this even shows up in different kinds of research patterns. So you'll take individuals who self-identify as pessimistic realists versus individuals who self-identify as optimists, and you give them a task. You say, okay, here's a page in a newspaper. I want you to read and describe everything in the far right column. And the realists, the pessimists will, and they can do that really precisely. For everybody else, the far left column says, aha, go to the examiner and request your $50 reward now. You have successfully completed the task.
Yeah.
So it's that ability or desire or what have you to that internal refusal to kind of accept the world on its own terms that lends itself to that. So, or as you know, George Bernard Shaw, to kind of quote an Englishman, you know, a rational man adapts himself to the way the world is. An irrational man adapts the world to himself. Therefore, all progress is dependent upon the irrational man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a quote that's hard to argue with, because on some level, in order for things to get done, in order for the world to change in ways that we want it to change, as opposed to just the kind of organic, almost accidental change that happens as a product of billions of people doing their thing day to day.
Right.
For us to be able to sort of steer the ship in any kind of degree, it's kind of true, I suppose, that it requires that level of irrationality. So it's very interesting to hear that from a scientific perspective, that there's actually evidence there that says optimists get better life outcomes. Because that's I didn't even realize that there was research into optimism and pessimism and things like that. I feel like in future episodes, I feel like we're going to have to explore more areas where it's like, maybe people don't know if there's research in this area, but we're going to like look at it and see what it says, because I feel like that's always interesting. Anytime I'm thinking, oh, well, they probably haven't bothered to look at this. Like, it kind of sounds like the scientific profession pretty much looks at everything, right? So like,
so you know, so you want your CEO to be an optimist, but you want your auditor to be a pessimist.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess that's very true.
They won't miss the details.
Cool. So if you guys have any more in chat, any more questions, I know we've had a couple of really good ones so far. If you guys have anything else that you want to discuss, then we can go ahead. But I think for the time being, we've hit the hour mark. So
all right.
I'm happy to wrap things up if nothing else comes in. But while we wait for a couple of questions to potentially come in, we'll give it another couple minutes. I think that it would be probably a good opportunity to talk about obviously the major news that's going on right now, which is all COVID vaccine related. So I know we kind of mentioned it earlier on.
Fantastic.
How are you feeling at this point as a scientist, knowing that your fellow scientists have saved us from hopefully another long period of struggling against COVID?
I'm over the moon. I think that we've learned a lot about the pandemics and about our response to pandemics and what kinds of governmental responses succeed, what kinds don't. We've learned about disinformation pathways. Unfortunately, the victims of disinformation haven't learned that. So one of the things that we haven't yet learned is, okay, how do we combat disinformation? We've learned about the outsized role of social media companies in the promulgation of disinformation. And mainly, I think we probably, from the public health perspective, probably got profoundly lucky that our starter pandemic wasn't more deadly and more contagious.
Starter pandemic.
Deadly.
That's a terrifying phrase, but it's probably very accurate, I would assume.
We're entering the pandemic era, right? Because with habitat erosion, there's just more interaction between humans and animals. And with climate change, animals are trying to find places that are more cool. So, we're going to be meeting each other more often. And my wife, who studies public health, said, on average, about 20% of human viruses are zoonotic, meaning originating from animals. But about 70 to 80% of emerging infectious diseases are zoonotic. And as we learned, it only took one guy to have a bad encounter with one virus at a market in China. And boom. We now have a global pandemic that's accelerating. 10,000 plus daily deaths from this thing. In the United States of America right now, which absolutely is having the worst of it because of a complete failure of government. And that is the runaway single most important fact in looking at this. This was a colossal failure of the state. And the coronavirus is now the number one cause of daily death in the United States,
which is just mind-blowing.
More people are dying of coronavirus every day in the US than ordinarily would be dying of heart attacks or of cancer. Which are usually 1 and 2.
It's staggering, and I hope that it causes people to think very seriously about how they approach public health, from this point forward, because I definitely have gotten the sense that since moving here, 3.5 years ago, I've gotten the sense that this is a country that takes public health a lot less seriously than many other countries do. And that's a scary thing to deal with. But at the same time, I think that I would hope that the kind of lessons that we've learned from the COVID era, from the start of pandemic, so to speak, I would hope they're the kind of lesson you only have to learn once. Let's put it that way.
Well, a lot of your countrymen haven't learned it. Like a large.
Hey, I'm from the UK. They're not my countrymen yet. They're
well, you're new countrymen.
They're only my countrymen once I'm eligible to apply for citizenship in October of 2021. So we'll see. I guess whether or not I actually go through with that will depend on how the remainder of the pandemic era pans out. But
so this pandemic will be over, and there will be a lot of Americans who will deny that there ever was a pandemic.
Yeah, there probably will.
It was a deep state plot to exert ever increasing levels of control. Over the citizenry.
Which if that's what it was, it failed anyway. Because here we are, not being controlled by the deep state during a pandemic, but regardless. We will. I think we will have it remains to be seen how people will respond to the nature of the pandemic moving forward. But as a note to end on, just in case anybody in chat was remotely doubtful, is there any reason to doubt the efficacy of this vaccine, or is there any reason that anybody should be reluctant to take the vaccine?
The only individuals who should be reluctant are those who are allergic to ingredients in the vaccine, and those are available, a Google search away. And you're going to tend to know if you're allergic or not. The whole reason that allergy warning was issued is because there were 2 allergic reactions in the UK to the Pfizer vaccine, but these were in individuals who were already very atopic, meaning very prone to allergic reactions, to the point where they're carrying EpiPens around with them. And they had allergic reactions, they've recovered, they're doing fine. So if you're that sort of a person, you already know that.
Right.
For the rest of us, roll up your sleeves and be grateful that there are humans out there who work just as hard at solving infectious diseases as you do at whatever your job is every day.
Yes.
And they care just as much about the outcome. And wham, we're gonna win. We're gonna win this one. There's a lot of battles yet, but
yeah,
it's like D-Day. It's the end of the day on June the 6th, 1944.
Yes.
The Nazis are defeated. They don't know it yet. We've got to make the push until May 45 to get it done.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Certainly, it's one I can relate to as a Brit, but maybe there's some people in chat who find it a little more alienating. I don't know. Final Table Boy. Okay, so two questions coming in. So I don't want to keep you too long, but like we do have a couple things. If anyone had the virus already, do they still need the vaccine?
Yes, because we don't know the quality of natural immunity versus immunity from the vaccine. So there are a lot of technical reasons to think that immunity from the vaccine is superior in quality to immunity from the wild virus. So you should definitely get the vaccine if you're eligible. And there are some proven cases with DNA virotyping of reinfection from individuals who've had the wild infection. So we know, at least in theory, that some individuals get reinfected again after a wild infection.
Okay.
So get the vaccine to reduce that risk.
Cool. Okay. And finally, should people with autoimmune diseases like neurosarcoidosis get the vaccine?
So that question is very dependent on the particulars of your case, and therefore that's a decision you should make in consultation with your primary care provider.
Okay.
There are some individuals who probably shouldn't, but there are some individuals, and probably the vast majority within the camp of autoimmune diseases, who probably are eligible and should consider it, but under the guidance, under the guidance of a relevant care provider.
So Mario here says, "Damn, I don't have a primary care physician." So
welcome to America.
This is one of the situations that we deal with in America, that people don't have access to a primary care physician.
In your case, I would contact your local public health office. They're going to have that kind of information available, and there'll be someone who can have a conversation with you about that on the phone, whether that's a trained public health nurse who has deeper information about the vaccine, or they can kind of send it up the flagpole and get information from a public health physician.
Sure. Yeah. As Marilee points out, that's good advice. So hopefully everybody out there will have access to the vaccine very soon. Obviously, people like myself, I am not in a vulnerable category. I am not an essential worker. I am probably one of the least essential workers. As a professional poker player, I am probably at the absolute bottom of the list of people who should get the vaccine right away.
Guys like me want guys like you to die of the coronavirus, so we have a chance to pick up a few chips.
Yeah.
At a poker table. Right.
I was wondering where you were going with that. I was wondering if there's going to be some scientific reason why I should die of the coronavirus. And you're like, no, you just want to win a poker.
Selfish reasons. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, thank you, FTB, who says you're essential to us. I appreciate that. But yeah, I will most likely not get the virus for some time. I hope that all the healthcare workers and everybody who is actually essential gets it before me. But
Amen.
Like you, I'm very happy that we can finally start to see some light at the end of the tunnel of this whole thing. So thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you being here. I think moving forward, what we'll probably do, just given that it was very successful to talk about diet today, I think we'll have a topic for each episode. How do you feel about that? Is that good?
That works.
All right,
Sure.
So let's do that. I'll think about a topic.
Bring it on me.
If you have any suggestions, I'm not saying I have to choose the topic. So if you see any interesting research this week and you want to share it with us, feel free.
Will do.
We'll see you again next week. Thank you guys for your questions. Thank you guys for being here. I'll let you hop off, Dr. Rob, and I'll talk to chat a little bit more. All right, take care.
Bye for now.
Bye. All right, guys. Let me go back to my just chatting screen. There we go. We are back. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Dr. Rob, for another very interesting episode. I'm going to move this back to my main screen. There we go. Yes, thank you, Dr. Rob, for being here and providing his expertise, product of numerous years in the psychiatric field, in the neuroscientific field. So yeah, I'm really grateful to Dr. Rob for doing this show. It's a as FTB says, productive hour, really interesting hour of discussion. There's a lot of great stuff to be discussed, and there's a lot of I think really useful insight about the brain and how it works in there. So that's awesome. At some point, you guys may have noticed, at some point I dropped my ring during that interview, and I tried to hide it from you guys. I tried because I'd been talking about it and I didn't want to admit that I did it, but I dropped my ring. So I think I was going to do. Let's get a little bit of music in here. There we go. That's better. Oh, that's jaunty. What the hell? Let's turn that down. There we go. All right. So what I was going to do was thinking about doing a chapter of Lost Connections, but we're already at 1:15, so we've gone a little bit longer. We've gone a little bit past 1 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap things here for now. We're going to end this first part of the stream here, and I will be back in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. 1 hour and 45 minutes at around 3 p.m. Pacific time. And we're going to be playing some Mario Kart today, guys. So Mario Kart 8 is on the agenda. I know last week we had a vote between Golf with Your Friends and Mario Kart, and Golf with Your Friends just about won. But this time, because Mario Kart came a close second last time, I think Final Table Boy was looking for some Mario Kart action. So we're going to have some Mario Kart going on today, and we're going to have some fun because I'm looking forward to showing you guys all these memes and GIFs and stuff I'm adding to the stream. So we got a lot of possibilities here. There's going to be some fun stuff. There's going to be some fun stuff in there. So I will wrap it for now. I'm going to go take care of some stuff around the house. I'm going to go finish off the last couple of these memes. And then I'll see you at 3 p.m. Pacific. So I will be back in a little bit. Take care, guys.